there, Andy Parks from the Washington Times. Welcome aboard. I'll have my twisted take on the news of the week coming up. And I'll be checking in with Dave Boyer, Washington Times White House correspondent. But first, as a listener to my podcast, you're qualified to receive a 50% discount on an annual digital subscription to the Washington Times. Simply go to washingtontimes.com/Andy. That's washingtontimes.com/ANDY. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, here we go again, my twisted take on the news of the week. Let's dive right in, shall we? Let's start with President Sleepy Joe. I hear he's been getting into the Oval Office at about 9:30ish, and he wraps up at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, that sounds like the normal president, right? Are you kidding? Really? Donald Trump accomplished more in 1 hour than Biden does in a week. Now, it does make you wonder, who is really running the country, and does Biden know? He knows how to shut down a pipeline that we now desperately need. Yeah, the Keystone Pipeline would sure be a big help these days, and not just from a delivery standpoint, but for sheer numbers of high-paying jobs that it provides. But those same people who lost their jobs and livelihood were told they'd be getting jobs in clean energy. You know, like making solar panels. Well, wouldn't you know it, John Kerry, speaking before the House Foreign Affairs Committee, had to admit that slave labor in China was being used to produce these all-important sources of green energy. What a joke. Climate czar John Kerry, please. And speaking of energy policies under Joe Biden, his energy secretary, Jennifer Granholm, the Canadian-born former governor of Michigan, politician, educated lawyer, and author, knows nothing about, well, energy. A couple of days ago, she blamed the higher gasoline prices not on the pipeline hacking or the Biden policies, but, are you ready for this? COVID-19. Yep, that damn virus drove the cost of gasoline up. Who knew? Really, who knew? Oh, and about COVID, Sleepy Joe confused the American people with his mixed messages on the use of masks and social distancing this week. So much so, people don't even know whether they have to wear the mask or not. You know, it's funny. I routinely visit 3 different states in the District of Columbia. And when it comes to COVID restrictions, every place is different. Sometimes I can cross into an adjoining state and the rules simply go away. But I guess the virus doesn't go there, right, Joe? So I'm okay. But Joe did issue a warning. He said the unvaccinated will end up paying the price. Ooh, we're already paying the price, Joe. You've wasted more taxpayer money on this scam in 3 months than Donald Trump did in a few years. Oh, and some of you may have received the official IRS letter, which is actually a love letter to Joe Biden, written by Joe Biden. Have you seen these? Yeah, he's taking credit for giving citizens some of their hard-earned money back. I happen to notice he didn't mention the fact that some of that hard-earned American money was going to illegals, while some Americans didn't qualify for the cash. Oh, and did you see that beginning this summer, kids will get cash? Yep, American families with children will receive $300 a month for each child 6 and under, and $250 a month for each child between 7 and 12 years of age. Can't wait to see how that works out, can you? Can you say fraud? Well, let's see, what else is happening? Things are going well at the border. No. Kamala Harris, the go-to person when it comes to the crisis, has failed to go to the border. Yeah, she's in charge of doing nothing, while illegals by the hundreds of thousands stream into our country. 180,000 in April alone, and they're just the ones we know about. Yeah, but did you see where sex offenders are entering the country more than ever? That's right. A 2,500% increase over last year. These are really, really swell people, you know. One 49-year-old illegal is responsible for sexually attacking a 9-year-old. And the response from the left, nothing to see here, move along. Oh, and now she's blaming climate change. Yes, she's blaming climate change for the large number of migrants. Yes, yeah, climate change disasters caused them to run to America. Garbage. The fight is escalating in the Middle East. Israeli forces continue to fend off missile attacks by Hamas, the terrorist organization down the street. The mainstream media is painting Israel as the bad guys for destroying a building housing the leaders of Hamas and some media operations like AP, even though the Israelis gave a warning to get out. You know, you'd think AP and these other organizations would be thankful for that. No, they're upset. In fact, AP said they've never seen an indication that Hamas was in the building. Earth, the mainstream media, why don't you do a little investigating for once, okay? No one does their homework anymore. Journalist? What journalist? For all we know, Hamas could have had a sign on the door that read Hamas World Headquarters, and they wouldn't have noticed. uh, by the way, I would have given no warning at all. The terrorist cowards hide behind human shields everywhere churches, hospitals, schools. Until they're taken out completely, this is never going to stop. And one more thing, it certainly appears that Iran is playing a large role in the battle, providing missiles and other things. The Biden administration is trying to reestablish a relationship with those idiots. They have one mission, Joe: destroy Israel and destroy America. They've actually said it out loud, in case you haven't noticed. And speaking of idiots, the Squad has sounded off and wants Joe Biden to sanction Israel. They are, of course, pro-terrorist. Yet dumb left-wing Americans put these jackasses in office. Truly amazing, isn't it? The FAA has launched an investigation after it was discovered that the jet used by Governor Gretchen Whitmer to fly to Florida earlier this year was not licensed to fly charters. The governor, an outspoken critic of those traveling during the pandemic, vacationed in Florida during the COVID-19 surge. Ironically, the governor blamed that surge on Florida and the snowbirds that would be returning to Michigan. Yes. The Detroit News now says that the $27,521 paid to charter the airplane was picked up by a nonprofit linked to Whitmer's inauguration fund, established in 2018. Well, how about that? The jet apparently is owned by a group of wealthy Detroit businessmen who just happen to do a lot of business with the state. Again, nothing to see here. Move along. Karma sure is something cool, isn't it? Say what you want about Donald Trump, but he knew he was good for the news business. The latest ratings for the major news outlets have dropped again. Millions have abandoned CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, and even Fox. CNN has lost 37% of its audience, MSNBC 19%. Here's a shocker: Fox has lost 40%. Some think the center-left leaning recently has contributed to the Fox numbers falling. How about that? Governor Touchy-Feely, a.k.a. Andrew Cuomo, has disclosed through his spokesperson that he made $5.1 million from his book on how to govern in a pandemic. That's just shocking. I'm sorry. Yeah, I almost vomited too when I read the story. It is truly amazing, but, you know, the left pulls this crap all the time. The media loves this guy and won't dare question the money grab. Let's see. Make rotten decisions resulting in many deaths, and then tell the people how you wrestled with the problem of COVID-19 and you won. What a lowlife. Every single nickel of that money should go to his victims' families. I guarantee it won't. You know, he wouldn't get away with a scam like that if he had an R next to his name, would he? And finally today, BLM, Black Lives Matter, has chosen sides in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And the winner is Hamas. Yes, the terrorist will have the support from Black Lives Matter. This after Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and Joe Biden had a heated exchange on the tarmac in Detroit over the conflict. I suggested we send them one-way tickets to Gaza to help out. Just a thought. I'm joined now by Washington Times White House correspondent Dave Boyer. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Andy. How are you?
Doing just fine. Biden blames Trump for U.S. lagging behind China in electric vehicles. What's this all about?
Well, the president had a trip to Michigan yesterday to visit the Ford Motor Company's plant where they're building the new electric F-150 pickup truck, and gave a speech there about the future of the auto industry and how he views it all as being based on the move to electric vehicles. And he took the opportunity while he was speaking to this audience of United Auto Workers to blame the previous administration and Donald Trump for discouraging the use of and development of electric vehicles, and pushing America further behind in this new race to the future, if you will.
But I don't want to say he was lying, but he didn't exactly tell the truth on some things, right?
That's right. For example, he said, I believe he said the Trump administration had phased out the federal tax credit for purchasing an electric vehicle. That never happened. Trump's final budget, proposed budget in 2020, which of course we know presidents' budgets never really get enacted the way they're proposed. He did have a proposal in there for phasing out the electric vehicle tax credit, but the Congress didn't take it up, and
Yeah.
so that credit is still in place.
Yeah. I was shocked when I saw him get behind the wheel of the pickup truck, and even more shocked when he threatened to mow down a journalist.
Right. Journalist was talking to him through the window of the driver's window and said, "Mr. President, can we give you a question on Israel?" And he said, "Only if you get in front of the truck and I can floor it."
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Nice guy.
Yeah, what would happen if Trump would have said that?
Oh my God! Well, that's why I put it in my story, because
Yeah.
exactly that. I thought, what would the media have done? What would Democrats have done if Trump had said that to the press? They would have been, accusing Trump of attempted murder.
No, it's true. It's true. All right. While Biden was there, upon arrival, I guess it was, he had some kind of a confrontation, if you will, with Rashida Tlaib.
Very interesting, yeah. Rashida Tlaib, a Michigan Democratic lawmaker, the only Palestinian American in Congress, has been very critical of the Biden administration for not pushing harder for a ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinians. When the president arrived in Michigan, she met him on the tarmac at the airport, and they had a pretty intense-looking conversation for about 8 minutes, which is a long time in presidential politics when you're on your way here and there
Yeah.
to different events. And then later at the Ford auto plant, he called her out by name and said how much he admires her passion and called her a fighter, and he hopes her family in the West Bank is safe and sound. And he was obviously paying a lot of attention to her, and it seems like giving her a lot of, I don't want to say more attention than she was due, but he certainly is letting it be known publicly that he's addressing her concerns, or trying to.
Yeah. There was a thought that this was a staged event. In fact, Fox even had that up for a while, but I noticed they pulled it down. And I sort of took it as being all for show. Did you get that impression at all?
I didn't, but she was obviously there at the airport at the invitation of the White House. The White House only arranges for people who to greet the president getting off the plane, who they want to be there.
Yeah.
A mile away from the event, there were pro-Palestinian demonstrators protesting the president's visit, and obviously they weren't anywhere near him.
Right.
So certainly, yes, she was. You could call her a guest of the White House for that event.
Yeah. Biden facing court setback in bid to control states' tax cut policies. What exactly is Joe Biden trying to do here? Tell states how and where to spend their money, or they simply telling them they can't use it for tax cuts?
Well, a little bit of both. This administration is giving states so much money this year,
Yeah.
billions and billions of coronavirus relief, that there are strings attached, of course, with that. And another provision in this law that passed, this $1.9 trillion relief package that passed in February, is that states, according to the administration, cannot use any of this money to offset any tax cuts that they might want to do this year. And many states with Republican leaders are objecting to this. I think it's up to 16 states now have filed lawsuits in federal court fighting that provision, saying, we should be able to cut taxes if we want, and it's not clear from this law, when and how we're unable to cut taxes if we feel like we have the fiscal wherewithal to do it. It wasn't very well noted last week, but there was a federal judge in Ohio who issued a preliminary ruling in Ohio's lawsuit against the administration and saying, when this goes to the merits, the state is very likely to win again in its argument against the administration and be allowed to cut taxes whenever they want and however they see fit.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then Treasury Secretary Yellen evidently made a tax hike pitch to the Chamber of Commerce that didn't go too well, right?
Yes, the belly of the beast, so to speak. Right? Janet Yellen went to the Chamber of Commerce, which is right across the park from her office on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, and gave a speech to the business leaders, corporate leaders this week about the need for the corporate tax increase from 21 to 28%. Of course, that's what President Trump had lowered it to 21%, and that was given a lot of credit for reinvigorating the economy and up until the pandemic. And no, her pitch did not go over well with the business leaders. They are not amused.
Yeah. She told business leaders they needed to pay their fair share. But what is the fair share? The Democrats never tell us what the fair share is.
Yeah, it'll. I imagine if we get to 28%, it'll go, and then they'll decide the fair share is probably closer to 35% next year, right?
Yeah. All right, one final thing before I let you run. Cuomo's virus leadership book netted him $5.1 million. I spoke of this a little earlier. I just find that so hard to believe. The governor of New York made a lousy decision that cost lives, and he gets rewarded for it.
Pretty good gig, huh, Andy?
Yeah, no kidding. I want one of those.
No, really. In the middle of a pandemic, he took time out to write this book, and he also used governor's staff to help him write the book. They said it was on their own time, and they volunteered for it. Can you imagine the straight faces that you see when you made that argument? Yeah. Would you help the governor write your book, and maybe you'll still have a job when you're done? And so after all that, he had this deal with Penguin Books. He had to file his tax records with a state agency earlier this week for the tax deadline, and he revealed in that he's being paid a total of $5.1 million for the book. He got like I believe it was $1.8 something million advance, and he's still owed another $2 million over the next 2 years.
Unbelievable, really is. What's he going to do with the money? Any idea? I would think he should use it to give to the families of the victims.
Yeah, there was the New York State Republican chairman said exactly that. You have 15,000 some seniors in New York State died from COVID in the past year or so, and many of those deaths were the governor's administration tried to hide the true accounting of them. He did use $500,000 of his book fee to donate to the United Way of New York State. I believe he took another $1 million of his earnings to set up a trust fund for his daughters, and the rest is his.
Unbelievable. All right, anything you're working on we should know about?
I'm following Kamala Harris today. The vice president is going to be speaking to an Asian American group later this evening, and a virtual meeting with some officials from Guatemala about border issues. So we'll see what comes out of that.
Yep. Okay. Folks, you can read all of Dave Boyer's stories at WashingtonTimes.com. As always, thank you, Dave. We'll do it again.
Thanks, Andy.
Dave Boyer, Washington Times White House correspondent. Thanks for joining me today, and remember to receive a 50% discount on an annual digital subscription to the Washington Times. Go to WashingtonTimes.com/Andy. You'll get 24/7 digital access to the Washington Times at 50% off. Again, go to WashingtonTimes.com/ANDY. I'm Andy Parks. Have a great day.